Republicans currently hold a 53 to 47 lead in the Senate, and Democrats are searching for any possible way to reclaim the majority. But does that pathway actually exist? Today, I'm unveiling my brand new +1 Senate model for the first time. The data shows one specific red state is actually leaning Democratic right now, and if the GOP loses it, their entire majority could crumble. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Okay, so we're going to get right into this. I'm going to show you this +1 model. Now, I created this +1 model. I did it for the House, and I've done it for the Senate, but I haven't shown you any of the Senate information. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. And so this is our +1 model for the Senate. Now, I will have a copy of this on my Substack. So in the comments pinned at the very top, I'll have a link to my Substack. You guys can go over and take a look at this. I'm going to start posting all of these on my Substack. So when you're over there, please subscribe. It does help out because when I post videos on YouTube, I will always post a link on Substack. So you'll get a notification. You'll actually get an email. That way you won't miss any of my videos. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at this top line here. We'll look at the baseline number. We'll look at where we are currently. So where we are currently is we have 53 Republican senators, and then we have 47 Democrats and independents. That's why it says aligned, okay? The current baseline, and we're going to go over this. I'll break this down because some of this information you might look at it and say, well, right now it's saying that the GOP should hold the Senate, okay? That's the prediction. That's the forecast right now coming from the +1 model. However, it is a razor thin margin, and I'll show you. When it comes down to it, there are a lot of states that are out there that Democrats can pick up. Okay, there are a lot of toss-ups that are out there. So it says GOP hold, it says 51 to 49. So the forecast here is saying that Democrats will gain 2 seats, okay? And it says the best pickup, that's North Carolina. So when we're talking about that red state, that's North Carolina. Although North Carolina now is kind of moving to purple, but it's still considered a red state. The seat, I mean, if Democrats win, they're going to flip a red seat. And then if Democrats are able to take back control of the Senate, they're going to have to win North Carolina, they're going to have to win Maine, and then 2 other states. And those are the states that we'll talk about here. So in this +1 model, what we're focused on, now we're not just looking at polling information. Okay, and that's the good thing about this model and how I created it. I basically trained AI to look at these different historical factors to come up with a formula to give each of these categories a weight. And then we can look at the overall score and find out, does this lean for Democrat? Does this lean for Republican? And so that's how we do this. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the polling average. We're looking at the prediction market. So they're both 25%. So when we're looking at the polling average, that's 25%. Looking at the prediction market, that's 25%. Looking at the state political climate. So different states, there's different environments in different states, okay? For example, Texas is a little bit different than California. It's a little bit different than Florida. So when we're looking at the different states, we do have to take into consideration the climate, the current climate. And so different states have different issues is basically what we're talking about here. And then we have the national environment. So we're talking about economy, okay? So we're talking about the affordability, all of that. That goes into here. And then we have special elections and statewide performances. So we're looking at different races. We're looking at how Democrats did. Did Democrats outperform? Did Republicans outperform? How did Trump do in a state in 2024? How did Harris outperform in a state in 2024? So all of this information is being gathered, okay? And then the weights. I didn't go for the weights. We'll go over them really quickly. So 20% there for the state political climate, 15% for the economy, for affordability, and then 15% for special elections and statewide performances. Okay, so now that we have all that out of the way, there's one more thing I just want to show you, just so when you start seeing these numbers, you'll understand what's going on. So we have a baseline of 50%, okay, or 50. That's just the number 50. So when we look at that baseline of 50, what that is telling us is it's a pure toss-up. Anything to the left of that, so if we go up in numbers, so 51, then all the way up to 100, anything to the left, that is strong, it's stronger for Democrats. So a 51 would still be considered a toss-up, but it still favors Democrats just a little bit. Okay, it's moving in that direction is basically what we're saying. Anything to the right of 50, so 49, 48, on down the line, all the way to 0, The strongest numbers for Republicans is going to be 0. The strongest number for Democrats is going to be 100. And so when we start looking at these numbers, because what this is doing is it's calculating all of this information that we just talked about, and then it's giving us a number. When we look at that number, then we'll know kind of where these states are according to this +1 model. Okay? All right. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. So we're going to look at the battleground states. Okay? Now, as I stated, we are going to, you'll have this information, okay? I don't know exactly how I'm going to put it out on Substack because I don't think you can put out PDFs, but I'll have it recreated so you guys can see what's on here. There's more information on here. I'm not going to go over all 35 states that are up for grabs in the Senate, okay? I'm not going to do that, but if you want to see it, it will be there, okay? All right, so let's look at the battleground states. So we're looking at the 9 battleground states. We've been talking about this for the last several months. And let's see how the +1 model rates these. Okay, so basically what we're looking at right now, it's held by a Republican, North Carolina. And so you can consider it's a red seat right now because Republicans hold it. So the score that we're getting right now is 67. What that means, 67 leans Democrat, right? Because if it's 50% or to the left of 50%, so higher, then it leans for Democrats. So 67 is where we are, okay? And it just says a top Democratic pickup. Cooper leads in the polling and the markets. Okay, so Roy Cooper is doing well. He's doing well, not just in the prediction market, not just in polling, but overall he's doing well. And then also when we look at the economy, that is hurting Republicans. Okay, right now it's hurting Republicans. I'll show you a few examples at the bottom here. But when it comes to North Carolina, it leans for Democrats. Okay, Maine. So we're looking at Maine. It's held by a Republican, Susan Collins. She's an incumbent. She's running for re-election. It's showing us 56. So remember, 50% or 50 to the left, higher numbers are better for Democrats. So 56, it's right on that line. 56 is right on the line of a toss-up and a tilt Democrat. Right now, it's tilt Democrat, okay? And then it just says split polling, Fox. So they're talking about the Fox News poll. They're talking about the New York Times Siena poll. And so Collins +3, and we went over this. I just did a video on this talking about Collins actually showed that she was ahead in one poll within that margin of error, very important to note. And then it shows Plattner. So they're just basically saying these top 2 polls that just came out, they're showing a split. And that's the reason why when I came up and I said, yeah, I think it's a toss-up, Maine is a toss-up right now. That's why I said that, because we have a split. Now, one more thing I want to talk about. When it comes to the AI model, I'm not doing anything to the AI model, okay? What I'm doing is I'm telling it, can you run the numbers? Can you take a look at the economy? It's going to look at inflation. It's going to look at the GDP. It's going to look at unemployment. It's going to look at all of those factors, and then it's also going to look at special elections and everything. It does this all on its own. And then it reports back to me and it'll show me the numbers. That way I can at least check the numbers to say, okay, well, yes, these numbers are correct or these numbers might not be correct. Sometimes when you're asking AI things, they don't give you the right information. So you do have to double check. So that's what it's doing. It's giving me this information. I am not influencing it when it comes to this information. Yesterday when I did a video, I was giving you my opinion on the different polling that was out there. And because we had new polling, that's why I made some shifts to the map. But this map is different because it's just the AI model telling us this is where I think this race is going. If we had an election today, this is what we would see. Okay, Alaska. So looking at Alaska right now, Republican held seat. Sullivan is the incumbent. He's running for re-election. It has Alaska at 52. Remember, 50 to the left of 50, 52. That means that it is a toss-up, but it's on the Democrat side just slightly. Okay, so that's what we're looking at there. Peltola keeps Alaska competitive despite the red state baseline. And we did see some polling that came out and showed Sullivan actually ahead. But you have to understand, the AI model is not just looking at polling averages. It's looking at the polling average. It's looking at the prediction market. The prediction market still has Peltola winning. Okay, so that's important to note. And then it looks at the other factors as we discussed. Okay, let's look at the next state, Ohio. So Ohio right now, Republican has the seat. Houston, he is an incumbent, even though he was appointed to the position, he's an incumbent. And so the AI model has Ohio as a toss-up, okay? And then it just says Fox showed Brown ahead, New York Times showed Houston ahead. So now you have another split there when it comes to the recent polls. So the next one we're looking at is Iowa. So right now it's a Republican held seat, but it will be an open seat because Ernst is not running again. And so we have it at 49. So 49, that is 50 to the right. So it's lower. So 49, which means it's slightly favored for the Republican, but it's still considered a toss-up. And then it says that Fox showed Turek at +4, which we just went over that. New York Times showed Hinson with a narrow lead. Now, both of the polls that came out, both of them are within that margin of error, okay? So there's no clear leader. All right, moving forward, Texas. Looking at Texas, currently held by a Republican, and we are looking at 47. Okay, so 47, as we stated, it is a toss-up, but it's slightly a Republican-favored state. And then it shows here that the Siena poll showed Tallarico and Paxton tied. Texas baseline still favors GOP. So when we're looking at the environment in Texas, it still favors the GOP. It doesn't mean that Tallarico can't win. I think Tallarico has a good shot at winning, but it just means that historically speaking, voters in Texas vote for Republicans. That's all it's saying. It's not saying that they're going to vote for Paxton. It's just saying that historically speaking, that is what we've seen, at least in the last 30 years when it comes to a Senate seat. Okay, Michigan. So we have Michigan here. And when it comes to Michigan, it's a Democratic held seat. It's an open seat now. So we have 3 candidates on the Democratic side running in the primary. And it is rated right now at 59. So 50 to the left. That means that we're looking at a situation where this is a tilt Democratic. And then the model is telling us that this is a vulnerable seat for Democrats, okay? The most vulnerable seat for Democrats. And so it'll probably be the hardest one for Democrats to defend. Okay, New Hampshire. Democratic held seat. We're looking at 65 here. This leans Democrat. Now, this is another open seat. You have Pappas running, probably most likely will be running against Sununu. And this is competitive, but still Democratic leaning. And then the last one here, Georgia. Okay, so Georgia's current, Ossoff is the current senator. He's running for re-election, so he's the incumbent. We have that at 72, which means that this leans, and you could probably even say it's likely Democrat at 72. It probably should move up to likely, but nonetheless, they have it here. It says lean Democratic. It says Fox showed Ossoff ahead by double digits. That was at 13 points that we just saw, and I talked about that in a previous video. And then it says, but state remains competitive. Okay, the last thing I want to show you, and then we'll go over this Senate map. I'm going to show you this on the map so you can visually see what we're talking about. But it gives us the different scenarios, so Senate control scenarios. And so for Republicans to hold, all they need to do is not lose more than 3 seats. If they lose 3 seats, they're still fine. So right now they're at 53. If they lose 3 seats and they get down to 50, they still control the Senate. Okay, now it'll be razor thin at that point because it's going to be 50-50 and the vice president comes in and breaks the tie. But that's all they need to do as Republicans. And that's why Republicans have that advantage already. They have that advantage because they already have the numbers. And so they just need to be good defenders. If they can't defend some of these states and they lose 4, then yes, they're going to lose control. Now, this is the current baseline. The current baseline is saying that Democrats should gain 2 seats. And they are basically saying that Democrats are going to flip North Carolina and they're going to flip Maine. And then the rest of the states that the Republicans need to defend, they'll be able to defend, and we'll look at a final number of 51 to 49. 51 for Republicans, 49 for Democrats and independents. Now, the scenario for Democrats to take back control of the Senate, they need to gain 4. So it would look like this. Democrats flip North Carolina, they flip Maine, and then 2 of these states, Alaska, Ohio, Iowa, or Texas. Okay, if they can flip 2 of those, plus North Carolina and Maine, then they take back control of the Senate. And I'll show you this visually in a second. And then if we're looking at a Democratic wave, okay, Democrats gain between 5 and 6 seats. This is that Hail Mary pass, okay? It's possible, but it's going to be very, very hard. Now, if Democrats flip North Carolina, Maine, Alaska, and Ohio, Iowa, and possibly Texas, okay? It's not impossible. It's not impossible because if we look at our Senate map, and we went over all of this, you saw all the toss-ups that when I was talking about the different toss-ups, you saw that we had, let me show you the toss-ups really quickly, and then we'll look at the map. But if we're looking at the toss-ups here, the toss-ups We have Alaska, a toss-up. Ohio, a toss-up. Iowa, a toss-up. Texas, a toss-up. So you have a lot of toss-ups in here. And so if we're looking at all those toss-ups, it's very possible that Democrats can win some of these toss-ups. So North Carolina, they're not considering that a toss-up. So they're saying that Democrats should win in North Carolina if there was an election held today. That's what it's saying. Maine, same thing. Democrats should win Maine. Now, when it comes to the rest of these states, these are toss-ups. And Democrats have a shot at winning some of these toss-ups. And so when we look at a state like Texas, Democrats have a possibility of winning in Texas. Tallarico has a real shot. I think Tallarico has a better shot now than he would have had going against Cornyn, because I think Paxton is a much easier candidate for Tallarico to defeat. And so we could look at a scenario, just like they were saying, we could see that wave where Democrats win in Alaska, Democrats win in Texas, Democrats win in Ohio. If they win those, now we're looking at a scenario where Democrats and independents are at 52 and Republicans are at 47, and that would be a huge victory for Democrats. Not only is it a huge victory, but then it also will address the Fetterman factor, if you want to call it the Fetterman factor, where Fetterman could decide that he wants to become an independent and not caucus with either side, or he wants to become a Republican. We don't know exactly what's in Fetterman's head right now, but he might end up being difficult for Democrats, especially if Democrats want to pass legislation like reconciliation bills and things like that. He might not be for them. He might be that Manchin that we saw several years ago. And so to counter against the Fetterman factor, if Democrats got to 52, they wouldn't really have to worry about just that one vote. They wouldn't have to worry about Fetterman so much. But this is going to be very hard, because like I'm showing you on this map, it's not going to be easy for Democrats to flip all of these different states, let alone when it comes to Iowa. Although Iowa is looking better for Democrats now, just looking at some of the latest polling, and it's showing us that Iowa is a true toss-up. So if Democrats are able to win Iowa as well, now Democrats are at 53. And now we have a complete flip. So right now Republicans have 53, Democrats and independents are at 47. We could see a complete reversal. That would be that blue wave, blue tsunami that we could see in the Senate. That's possible, but very, very hard. As I'm stating, Democrats have to do everything right in order to make that happen. And so now I want to hand it off to you. What do you guys think about this +1 model? Do you agree, disagree? If you disagree, let me know what you disagree with in the comments below. Also, check out the Substack. I will have this information on the Substack so you can check it out, because there's some states on here that I didn't go over. I didn't go over every state. So like South Carolina or Florida, people have asked me about these different states. Kansas and Mississippi, you'll see the ranking, so you'll see what those numbers look like. And once again, thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe for more, and remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.